Though the word basilica comes from the Latin word meaning royal place, we currently understand it as grand Catholic structures that mimic the large oblong hall or building with double colonnades and a semicircular apse, which in ancient Rome was a court of law for public assemblies. Within this category of large churches resides cathedrals, which are typically around the same size but are in higher standing because they are the principal church in a diocese. Though I've experienced various grand Catholic churches in my upbringing, Roman basilicas stand on a different level. Reminiscent of an age where the church was wealthy and art was the highest expression of devotion, these buildings left behind are beautiful commemorations of fine art. The Basilica di Santa Croce, or Basilica of the Holy Cross, is the principal Franciscan church in Florence, and it is the burial site of some of the most famed Italians, such as Michelangelo, Galileo, and Dante. The basilica is the largest Franciscan church in the world. Legend says that Santa Croce was founded by Saint Francis himself, and houses some of his religious artifacts. In 1966, the Arno River flooded much of Florence, including Santa Croce. The water entered the church bringing mud, pollution, heating oil, and the damage to the buildings and the art was severe, taking several decades to repair. One of the main victims is Cimabue's crucifix, a wooden crucifix painted in distemper. It is one of the first Italian works to break from the late medieval Byzantine style, and is renowned for its technical innovations in humanistic iconography. A graphic portrayal of human suffering, the painting is of seminal importance in art history and has influenced painters like Michelangelo and Caravaggio. Santa Maria Novella is situated just across from the main railway station named after it. Chronologically, it is the first great basilica in Florence, and it is the city's principal Dominican church. The Holy Trinity, situated almost halfway along the left aisle, is of Masaccio, a pioneering early Renaissance work showing his new ideas about perspective and mathematical proportions. The cadaver tomb below carries the Latin epigram, "I was once what you are, and what I am you will become." Moving on to the most stunning facade I saw the entire trip, the Florentine Cathedral, or Santa Maria del Fiore. It was begun in 1296 in the Gothic style with the design by Arnolfo di Cambio, and completed structurally in 1436 with the dome engineered by Filippo Brunelleschi. That architectural choice in 1367 was one of the first events of the Italian Renaissance, marking a breakaway from medieval Gothic style and a return to the classic Mediterranean dome. The exterior of the basilica is faced with polychrome and marble panels in various shades of green and pink bordered by white. The cathedral complex includes the baptistry and Giotto's Campanile. The basilica is one of Italy's largest churches, and until development of new structural materials in the modern era, the dome was the largest in the world. It remains the largest brick dome ever constructed. By the beginning of the 15th century, after 100 years of construction, the structure was still missing its dome. The basic features of the dome had been designed by Arnolfo di Cambio in 1296. The building of such a masonry dome posed many technical problems. Brunelleschi looked to the Great Dome of the Pantheon in Rome for solutions. Brunelleschi would have to build the dome out of brick due to its light weight compared to stone and being easier to form, and with nothing under it during construction. To illustrate his proposed structural plan, he constructed a wooden and brick model with the help of Donatello and Nanni di Banco, a model still displayed in the Duomo Museum. The Florence Baptistry, also known as the Baptistry of St. John, is a religious building that has the status of a minor basilica. The octagonal baptistry stands in the Piazza del Duomo across from the Florence Cathedral in Campanile di Giotto. The baptistry is one of the oldest buildings in the city, constructed between 1059 and 1126 in the Florentine Romanesque style. The baptistry is renowned for its 3 sets of artistically important bronze doors with relief sculptures. The south doors were created by Andrea Pisano, and the north and east doors by Lorenzo Ghiberti. The east doors were dubbed by Michelangelo the Gates of Paradise. The baptistry is crowned by a magnificent mosaic ceiling. The earliest mosaics, works of many unknown Venetian craftsmen, date from 1225. The covering of the ceiling started under the direction of Francescan and Jacopo Turriti, and was probably not completed until the 14th century. The mosaics are done in a broadly Byzantine style with iconic figures in a gold background. This mosaic style depicts 3 sections above a high altar. San Lorenzo was the parish of the Medici family. The church is part of a larger monastic complex that contains other important architectural and artistic works, but its crowning glory is the Medici chapels. With its huge dome and lavish interior decorated with marble, the mausoleum was designed to bear witness to the grandeur of the Medici dynasty, now firmly set on the Tuscan throne. Its stunning beauty takes form with the inlaid marble and jigsaw patterns, making up the design of the building. None of the walls were painted, and images are entirely constructed out of pieces of marble. Michelangelo designed the monuments dedicated to certain members of the Medici family with sculptural figures of the 4 times of day that were destined to influence sculptural figures reclining on architraves for many generations to come. It becomes apparent in the female bodies that Michelangelo was not familiar with the feminine figure, much preferring the male physique to the point that the breasts almost feel like an afterthought. The Laurentinian Library is a historic library containing more than 1,100 manuscripts and 4,500 early printed books. Built under the patronage of the Medici Pope Clement VII, the library was built to emphasize that the Medici were no longer merchants, but members of intelligent and ecclesiastical society. It contains the manuscripts and books belonging to the private library of the Medici family. The Pisa Cathedral is a medieval Roman Catholic cathedral dedicated to the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. It is a notable example of Romanesque architecture, in particular, the style known as Pisan Romanesque. The pulpit, a masterpiece made by Giovanni Pisano, survived the fire but was dismantled during the work of restoration and was not reassembled until 1926. We went for the famous Leaning Tower and were treated to a one-man a cappella in the baptistry. St. Peter's Basilica is an Italian Renaissance church in the Vatican City. Designed principally by Dante Bramante, Michelangelo, Carlo Maderno, and Gian Lorenzo Bernini, St. Peter's is the most renowned work of Renaissance architecture and the largest church in the world. Whether it is neither the mother church of the Catholic Church nor the cathedral of the Diocese of Rome, St. Peter's is regarded as one of the holiest Catholic shrines. It has been described as the greatest of all churches in Christendom. Catholic tradition holds that the basilica is the burial site of St. Peter, one of Christ's apostles and also the first pope. St. Peter's tomb is supposedly directly below the high altar of the basilica. The entire interior of St. Peter's is lavishly decorated with marble, reliefs, architectural sculpture, and gilding. The basilica contains a large number of tombs of popes and other notable people, many which are considered outstanding artworks. One amazing aspect are the mosaics. Because of the humidity in Rome, all of the original paintings were removed to preserve the material and replaced with incredible intricate mosaics, which at first glance appear as any normal painting until you get a little closer. There are also a number of sculptures in the niches and chapels, including Michelangelo's Pietà. This famous work of art depicts the body of Jesus on the lap of his mother Mary after the crucifixion. The theme is of northern origin, popular by that time in France but not yet in Italy. Michelangelo's interpretation of the Pietà is unprecedented in Italian sculpture. It is an important work as it balances the Renaissance ideals of classical beauty with naturalism. It is the only piece Michelangelo ever signed, and 16th century art historian George Vasari told the tale of how Michelangelo made his mark. One day, Michelangelo, entering the place where it was set up, found a great number of strangers from the Lombardy who were praising it highly, and one of them asked from one of the others who had done it. He answered, "Oh, our Gobbo from Milan." Michelangelo stood silent, but thought it something strange that his labor should be attributed to another. And one night he shut himself in there, and having brought a little light in his chisels, carved his name upon it. St. Peter's baldachin is a large Baroque sculpted bronze canopy over the high altar of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City. The baldachin is at the center of the crossing and directly under the dome of the basilica. Designed by the Italian artist Bernini, it was intended to mark in a monumental way the place of St. Peter's tomb underneath. Under its canopy is the high altar of the basilica. Commissioned by Pope Urban VIII, the work began in 1623 and ended in 1634. Santa Maria degli Angeli is a unique Renaissance church in Rome. Designed by Michelangelo, it was built inside the Roman walls of the Baths of Diocletian. It is dedicated to the Virgin Mary, to the angels, and to the Christian slaves who died building the baths. Like most churches in Rome, Santa Maria degli Angeli is filled with art and monumental tombs and also has some holy relics. On the left side of the altar is the meridian line, a sundial laid down along the meridian that crosses through Rome at 15 degrees latitude. At true noon, the sun casts its light on the line. The Ecstasy of St. Teresa is a central sculptural group in the Cornaro Chapel. It was designed and completed by Bernini, the leading sculptor of his day, who also designed the setting of the chapel in marble, stucco, and paint. It is generally considered to be one of the sculptural masterpieces of high Roman Baroque. The two central sculptural figures of the swooning nun and the angel with the spear derive from an episode described by St. Teresa of Avila in her autobiography, The Life of St. Teresa of Jesus. Her experience of religious ecstasy and her encounter with the angel is described as follows. "I saw in his hand a long spear of gold, and at the iron's point there seemed to be a little fire. He appeared to me to be thrusting it at times into my heart, and to pierce my very entrails. When he drew it out, he seemed to draw them out also, and to leave me all of fire with the great love of God. The pain was so great that it made me moan, and yet so surpassing was the sweetness of excessive pain, that I could not wish to be rid of it. The soul is satisfied now in nothing less than God. The pain is not bodily but spiritual, though the body has its share in it. It is a caressing of love so sweet that which now takes place between the soul and God, and I pray God of his goodness to make him experience it, who may think that I am lying." Though not quite basilicas, these next churches represent the same grandeur and excellence of its sisters. San Carlo is an influential Baroque church in Rome that was designed by Francesco Borromini as a part of a small monastery for a community of Spanish monks. It was commissioned in 1634 and built during 1638 to 46. To fit a cramped and difficult site, the church has an unusual and somewhat irregular floor plan in the shape of a Greek cross defined by convex curves. The unifying design feature in the interior is the use of the triangle, a a motif for the Trinity. The Church of St. Andrew's at the Quirinal was built for the Jesuit seminary on Quirinal Hill. The Church of Sant'Andrea is an important example of Roman Baroque architecture and was designed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Bernini received the commission in 1658, and the church was constructed by 1661, although the interior decoration was not finished until 1670. Commissioned by a former cardinal, Camillo Francesco Maria Panfili, with the approval of Pope Alexander VII, Bernini considered the church one of his most perfect works, and his son, Domenichino, recalled that in his later years, Bernini spent hours sitting inside it, appreciating what he had achieved. The Church of Gesù is a mother church of the Jesuits, officially named Church of the Most Holy Name of the Jesuits at the Argentina. Its facade is the first truly Baroque facade, introducing the Baroque style into architecture. The church served as a model for innumerable Jesuit churches all around the world, especially in the Americas. Andrea Pozzo, a Jesuit lay brother, painted the grandiose fresco that stretches across the nave ceiling. It celebrates the work of Saint Ignatius and the Society of Jesus in the world, presenting the saint welcomed into paradise by Christ and the Virgin Mary, and surrounded by allegorical representations of all four continents. Pozzo worked to open up and even dissolve the actual surface of the nave's barrel vault, arranging a perspective projection to make an observer see a huge and lofty cupola open to a bright sky and filled with upward floating figures. A marble disc set into the middle of the nave floor marks an ideal spot from which the observer might fully experience the illusion. Though it is difficult to cover every unique aspect of every basilica and church, this is a testament to the grandiose nature of these temples of worship. Even if you aren't religious or even remotely Christian, these monuments of devotion are a pillar of beauty, and that's a hard thing to find elsewhere.